to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Aleph, first letter, silent, determinative. You are Aleph, you are silent, you are one. Above, with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing. Thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an Aleph. Feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Aleph, first letter, silent, determinative. You are Aleph, you are silent, you are one. Above, with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing. Thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an Aleph. Feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Aleph, first letter, silent, determinative. You are Aleph, you are silent, you are one. Above, with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing. Thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an aleph. Feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Aleph, first letter, silent, determinative. You are aleph, you are silent, you are one. Above with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing. Thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an aleph. Feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Aleph, first letter, silent, determinative. You are aleph, you are silent, you are one. Above with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing. Thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an olive, feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Olive, first letter silent, determinative. You are olive, you are silent, you are one. Above with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places, meet me at blessing, thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places, be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an olive, feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Olive, first letter silent, determinative. You are olive, you are silent, you are one. Above with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places, meet me at blessing, thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places, be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence, become an olive. Feet to the ground, tethered to the top of your head. Olive, first letter silent, determinative. You are olive, you are silent, you are one. Above with a yud above, a yud below, a hand above, a hand below. Thank you for the soul breathing within me. My lines left in pleasant places. Meet me at blessing, thread to the heart of the world. My lines left in pleasant places. Be a true person of compassion. Pull them together into time, just enough for another day. Sit down, find your silence.
Okay. All right. Now we're trying a new way to do this. So we're appreciative to our son Jake, who's the technician behind the scenes. And welcome to the Stone Salon. We love to invite our friends to come and check in with us every Thursday at 8:15. We have a little poetry, a little music, and just a little schmooze on what's going on in the world. So we have invited our dear friends Deb Krause and Bill Perman, the Reverends Krause and Perman, to join us, and I think they'll be with us in a few moments. So it's we skipped last week because it was a lot going on. There they are. I just saw them kind of pop in. There they are.
Making us better.
Oh, it's so nice to see you. Are you drinking tea? You're drinking tea. How lovely. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Now.
Oh, yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Good. Oh, it's wonderful to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Good.
How are you guys doing?
It's been an interesting time. Right? We didn't have the Salon last week. It was the Democratic National Convention. We figured people would be busy. I'm going to let Jake know that we're hearing a little echo. Do you hear a little echo? We're using a new system. So
A little.
We have
two of us.
Two of us. It's very disturbing. It's two screens of us.
Oh, really?
One over each head.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one screen of you and two screens of us.
Okay.
Well, that's cool. See, we each get more of us.
All right. Well.
Okay, I just sent Jake a message.
Any hair tips?
Yeah, that was Deb. Deb, when we first said we were going to do a salon, had the thought that it was all about hair, which we could kind of use these days. It's like
We
COVID
said,
hair.
I've had a lot of difficulty.
She won't let me cut her hair. I cut hair, but she won't let me
Do
do
you?
it.
Yeah, Jim's offered to, and I just
Look at him.
I can do this to anybody,
we
but
need
I've
to
done,
do that.
I've done women's hair too.
Ah, well,
Yeah.
you know, socially distanced
You know,
hair.
I think we all should have an honest way to make a living.
Right.
You know, the rabbis of old were like peddlers or shoemakers. They never made a living from being rabbis. So
Mhm.
Yeah. we all
probably
should-
something about that that's important.
As a matter of fact, I went off one day. Who was it that said, a guy that influenced me? I went away for some years and I came back, and he said, "Where have you been?" And I told him I'd been away studying in Jerusalem to do what he does. And he looked at me and he said, "Find another way to make a living." And I understand what he was saying. You know, he was a little bit he was a little bit discouraged with his own work. You know what I'm saying? And I suppose that can happen for us. You know, but that's kind of what we want to talk to you about. You're not discouraged yet, are you?
For some moments,
Uh-oh.
maybe. You know? I mean, not an overwhelming, overarching every moment discouraged, but yeah.
Okay. Where are you guys now? Where are you living? Are you at your big place or your little place?
We're still in our apartment. We
Oh,
haven't
okay.
moved. Our house on the campus isn't done.
Okay.
So the last time we spoke, the Reverend
The presidential
Deb Kraut.
palazzo.
What?
The presidential palazzo is not
Yeah.
complete.
Oh, it's not ready for you. Okay. But we spoke, you were just about to become the president, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we check in to see, you know, how things are going. I know the classes are virtual. I've seen a couple of the pictures of the Zoom classes and how your future ministers are faring, how they're taking to this.
Yeah, remarkably well. Remarkably well, I have to say. I mean, if there are things to be surprised in a delightful way by in this season for me, it's that. It's that the sort of analysis that we did of last spring when we moved to being online. We were building our online approach for the summer and the fall. And as we were doing that, we were polling the students about their experience in that move, you know, and we paid particular attention to their course evaluations. Did they deviate from semesters prior in terms of their satisfaction and in terms of their meeting the outcomes of the courses? And there was really no substantial difference. They were happy. I mean, maybe they were putting on a brave face, but they were reporting that they loved their classes. The faculty were reporting that students were attending classes. People weren't blowing it off. And you know, that was kind of interesting because we really were showing a lot of grace about grading and things like that. They were getting their assignments reduced. They didn't have as much pressure on them. So they could have blown their classes off if they had wanted to, but they were attending their classes and found it to be valuable.
That's sweet. That's good. Yeah. You
We're
but-
not hearing. We're having trouble with the
Oh,
sound, I think.
wait, we
again.
don't hear you right now. Hold on a second.
Oh no.
Oh,
There we
there you
go.
go. There you go. There you go.
There we go.
Wow.
You're back.
Thank you. So we had the chance to kind of over the summer, the faculty used that as sort of wind in the sails to really design a much more fulsome online approach to teaching. Instead of just doing everything on Zoom, dividing their courses up. So there are some asynchronous components that students do on like a web-based platform. And then about half as much time in face-to-face interaction on Zoom, because I think people do get a little zoomed out. So I've been really proud of how the faculty has, I mean, we are a residential campus. This is not our normal mode. And so we've kind of been shoved into this new world, which is in many ways where higher ed is going. And we've learned a lot. And I really don't think we're going to go back to just being a residential campus without a fair amount of distance access. So it'll be some sort of blended approach from here on.
Well, it occurs to me too that you are definitely, an institution of higher education, but you're also training clergy. You're training, academics, but also ministers that, you in these challenging times have to learn how to respond in holy ways to whatever is thrown at them, right?
Right, and so it's not just courses. We had to really build our whole community of learning, which is worship and social interactions and our student government. And a huge part of our programs, at least in our Master of Divinity, which is the degree for people who are training to be ministers, is our contextual ed program. And Susan, you've had students of ours as contextual ed students, so you know about that.
Yes, I've had them at interns. I've had Christian ministers and interns in my shul, right?
I know. It's amazing, and it's been a really powerful thing. But that experience of being with a professional in ministry in a setting is a huge part of our formation experience for students. And every semester they're in their program, they're in a setting like that with a religious leader. And so that experience, how do you do that virtually? Well, we are, because our network of congregations and organizations are virtual now, the lion's share of them. So students are learning to be ministers with their supervisors in the virtual space. And, I think history will tell of this time and what they've learned. I think they will learn what they learn, and it will be important and valuable. And the other things they'll learn later. I think that's how it will go.
You don't have anybody that actually lives on campus, though, right?
Oh, yeah, we do. We have lots of students.
You have a residence? Oh, I didn't realize
the other side of the right?
And we have faculty who live on campus, not just the president in her palazzo, but the whole faculty.
I thought you meant by a residential facility that people attended classrooms there, that it was a classroom experience, but you actually mean people actually live there, right?
Well, actually, when I said that, I meant that we do face-to-face, in-person learning. We haven't had much of a distance educational model. That I did mean that, right. So you understood me right. But we also have housing. We have an 18-acre campus. We have a huge campus. So, we have a lot of real estate on which we can't gather.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. We've been going to that market because it's outside and it feels safe. So we drive by Eden a lot.
Rogers Veggie. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, we like that market.
And this, Susan, that you're not in the building, you're not gathering, you're not having services there, but you still have to take care of it. You have that physical facility that you have to tend to.
Yes.
And you have to heat and cool it, and you have to clean it, and you have to make sure that it's safe. And it's really an interesting time in this way of doing ministry and community work with buildings.
Well, just before COVID, we put on a new roof, and I know my son managing this. He could tell you we've had about 5 or 6 leaks that have been really serious leaks. So you're right. You still have to take care of the building when we're not using it.
Right.
And we do have our early childhood center is open.
Yeah, I knew that. That's awesome.
Well, we figured that was an essential service, especially for, the first responders. We have some of those. We have healthcare workers. And we have people who have to go to work. So they have to have childcare. So
you guys are right by the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're taking care of a lot of those babies.
The easy part of this is all the teaching that we have to do, because this takes to that. I mean, even though it's not ideal, it's an easy transition to make to teaching this way. But everything else is tough, difficult. And I think the isolation that people feel, tough, the absence of touch, difficult, and all that kind of thing is really have the insularity of it, the squeeze of it is very difficult, really difficult.
On Sundays at 1:00, we do a meeting for people living with mental illness. And this past week, there was someone I didn't know how to hold her. I wanted to reach through the screen and just hold her. It's challenging,
It's pretty interesting how it seems the people that we're in touch with anyway, it seems to me that a lot of people are in similar places. They're onto a rhythm that we've all kind of picked up on. That is a kind of a common rhythm. So each week when we check in with each other and we start talking about what it feels like this week, a lot of heads are bobbing up and down in the screens, and we find ourselves in a very similar profile every week. And that's been interesting to me. It in a group of individualists, we all experience very similar kinds of things in this squeeze.
Speaking of that, how are you dealing with us, and not being there on the front line? I mean, we've been there together so many times, and so much is happening right now. How are you and Bill finding your voice and your way to be a part of that? It's been so important to all of us.
You want to talk about the vigil?
No, you go ahead.
No, you do it.
So Deb and a few of the members at first kind of appealed to the leadership. We're right on Del Mar, so we're kind of like you. We have a busy street going by us. To just go out on Wednesdays and have a vigil for Black Lives, hold signs and try and let our neighborhood know that we kind of see this. And I would say 6 years ago, our congregation didn't see this, and so there's some encouragement in that people can grow and move and change. But what's been nice about that for us is that it's Wednesdays at 5:30. It's a regular gathering. We're outside. We are wearing masks. We're socially distanced. But it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to kind of talk about just this. I think this political crisis we're in, this pandemic we're in, this racial pandemic we're in. And I guess to me, I guess my nervousness about this, or what I'm concerned about, is it's a smaller group of the church, and they're getting an opportunity to be with each other and share this. And I wonder about people who don't have that, because there's so much going on now, and I think it's so easy to fall into anger, despair, frustration, and how do you, after Donald Trump was elected, we opened the church the next day just to come and pray. And I think 30 people showed up in utter despair that someone who spoke the way he spoke, really, I think someone who was just antithetical to everything we kind of believed in as a religious community, won. And I think, I would say, well, whatever, he became president. And I think he's been as bad as we ever could imagine. I think everything we fear has happened. And I think people are just walking into this space of like, could that happen again? And if that happens again and we're all holed up in our houses when that happens again, how do you, like you said, how do you reach through the screen and hold someone when their worldview? Well, and I mean, just the way this touched your community. I mean, that couple who damaged your property. Your neighbors who did that get national attention and praise. And I mean, and I guess I think in a way, like Jewish people are used to that. I mean, like you have a history of the state coming after you, right? And we are not equipped for that kind of suffering, So we need your wisdom about that. How do you have people who are that horrible to you? I mean, really, utterly an assault on your community, on your children, and then they get lifted up as model citizens by what? A major political party, maybe a majority, who knows? So, all of that swirling around and that is that's challenging. And how do you navigate that?
I think for me, my experience of this vigil that Bill's talking about is a little bit different. He's the pastor of that community, and so I think it's appropriate for him to be concerned about, okay, we've got 20, 25 people out here on a Wednesday night, and that's great. Like, for us to have 25 people come to an event that isn't worship is pretty good. So we have good attendance for it, but how are the other people doing? They're not coming. So, I mean, that's a pastor's, perspective. For me, as someone who's a member of the community and participating in this, who has found this Wednesday night gathering to be a practice of mine, it has been, to answer Susan's question about how are you doing about not going out and being in the protests, I was doing some of that. I really felt like I had to pull back from that because of the amount of contact I have with my mom and caring for my mom, who is 90. And so I was getting nervous about how exposed I was and how much I was interacting in crowds. So I did pull back from that. But this Wednesday thing where we're all very masked and distant, and yet we're coming together. The thing we're coming to do is to stand in solidarity with our neighbors and to share our outrage about this system that is demeaning and destroying Black and brown people, and saying we're outraged about it, and we're going to do something about it. We're not just going to be this church on a corner that doesn't take a stand in this. And for me, that experience and the interaction we have with our neighbors every week, I mean, the amount of people who stop their cars, get out of their cars, walk and say, thank you for doing this. We support you. Can we buy a sign? Can we participate? We're going to do this at our church. The way the neighborhood has responded and how heartbreaking it is as predominantly white people to be in this witness and have African American people so touched by it. It takes so little to stand and say, we aren't going to do this, we're going to stand against this, and people are like, thank you so much. I mean, it's mortifying, in a way. But at the same time, it's like, wow, if we can take this step, how many more steps can we take? How could we move?
Right.
And then could we organize with all these churches and synagogues on Delmar to really do something?
Sure.
Like, could we take steps toward one another to move? And, so I just really it gives me a lot of hope in this otherwise very difficult time to be able to at least see people and stand there together and know we're drawing our power together to make this state. So that's how I feel about it.
Love it.
So I totally, the pastors.
So 5:30 every Wednesday
5:30
at the church.
At the church, Midland and Delmar.
Midland and
Delmar
Delmar.
and Midland, right? Can't miss it.
Yeah.
That's
Can't
great.
miss it.
That's great. You may see us there too. Yeah.
Would love that.
Yeah.
What is his last name? We have a member who has a beloved one, who is a member of CRC. His name is Dennis.
Really?
I can't remember his last name. And he comes every week.
Really? Oh, great.
Yeah, a member of CRC is already attending. That's what I'm saying.
That's so great. Good. I'm happy to know that.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Jeannie and Dennis, I think, watched the last one of these we were on, and so now they're going to be really
They're going to be like mad at us. Sorry, Dennis.
Dennis, we love you so much. We're on a first name basis. You don't need your last name.
1 degree of separation. You mentioned this whole crazy thing that went so viral with the story of the bees and our neighbors. And I have to say it was a real ethical dilemma for me because we teach our children not to call people names, And the story for me was, of course, it was about the destruction of the bees. That was a big deal, but that was, 2013. We did not do anything about it then. The story for me was about calling out bullies, right? But I hadn't done it. Even when I had been asked to for the past months, really, since people, since that whole protest happened when the McCluskeys, pulled their guns on the nonviolent, and we know these people who were standing in, we all know them. These were nonviolent people that were in front of their home, not on their property. And we know that because we have members on that street who, know them. And we're welcoming them, with their Black Lives Matter signs. But so, it was a real ethical dilemma for me. Do I break the rule of, calling people names, or do we use it as an opportunity to stand up to bullies, which we also teach our children? And it was a real dilemma. And the thing that pushed me over was the national attention that they were getting. They were part of that whole world that has been a world of lies and, a world of shame. And I just felt like it needed to be said. So when someone, from the Forward called and said, would you please speak about this? I just couldn't say no anymore.
Good.
That's
well,
what
and then
happened.
Susan, what you said was so perfectly illustrated by their speech or whatever it was during the convention. I mean, first of all, I couldn't believe how, in a way, it was like an archetypally St. Louis thing. I mean, heartbreakingly St. Louis thing that they would so completely embody our commitment to structural racism and inequality in housing. As they talked about, the real issue is that you're going to lose your quiet neighborhood and your good schools. I mean, all of this sort of coded language, layered in racism and structural inequality. And that's what's being lifted up as the greatness of America, after all we've been through and after all we've seen. And after everything, just the delusional kind of commitment to that provincial racist mentality that like Walter Johnson exposes in The Broken Heart of America. It's like they were like a kind of a figure of that book to me, and sort of a perfect illustration, unfortunately, of St. Louis. It was bad.
Right. Yeah. There's St. Louis again.
Well, you were right? Like, they are bullies.
Yeah.
They're bullies. And we're not just to us. I mean, they bullied a lot of people, and they are homophobic, and they've come out. So sometimes you just have to. It wasn't an easy. It's not easy. There's not an easy decision there, but I guess we did what we had to do, and we'll see. We'll see. But not everybody was so happy. I was called a lot of names. I got called a lot of names too. So we'll see. But we're so good to see you guys, and thrilled to hear about the vigil. And we miss drinking tea in person, and we're hoping that everybody is smart and does wear their masks and are careful and puts up with this, way of communicating with each other, and continues to share what's good. So hopefully we'll have a little poetry and a little music tonight as well.
Good.
And we'll see you at the vigil, socially distanced with our masks on.
We would love that. That would make us happy, and then you'll know exactly who Dennis is.
We'll find out which of our members are, living in both worlds. But I will tell you the strangest thing. Right before this, I had a call with our conversion candidates, and there was a person in our group that just finished 5 years of Christian seminary. And she's converting this person is converting to Judaism. I guess it's the path,
They're not unrelated. They're not unrelated.
Yeah.
They're not unrelated. And you learn that in seminary.
What? Yeah.
And you learn that in seminary.
Yeah.
From wonderful people like you and Howard Kaplansky.
Love teaching there. Love those students. They're amazing. Yeah, really love teaching there. It's a great place, as is the church. So thank you.
We claim you as our teacher, your professor.
Thank you. I've learned a lot.
Waiting to bring Zach in.
Yeah, so I know Zach, our oud player rabbi, who just did a very bold thing. He's with us too, but did we just lose? I'm confused about how this new process is. Did we lose Deb and what is this?
Move ourselves.
Okay, and how do we get rid of it so we can see?
I can bring anybody in. You just have to tell me who you want.
Oh, I see.
There's Zach. There's a little square, Jake, in front of Daddy's face. How do we get rid of that? There we go. All right. Now we can see everybody, right? Hi, Zach.
Hey, guys.
Zach,
how's everybody doing?
See you again.
I do, yeah. It's so good to see you guys.
Yeah.
And I was listening in with the new technology. You couldn't even tell, but I was here. I was making faces behind you.
Bunny ear.
Okay.
Yeah, literally bunny ears.
Oh, that's funny. That's great.
Well, let's see. We also have some videos. We have some videos. I think I had a video that I sent over, and Zach has a video. Zach recently, he's on hiatus, I guess. He's in an in-between play. He's thresholding. He's on the threshold. Something has ended, and the next has not appeared yet. So he's thresholding, and he's in New York, and not sure what he's.
And moved today, right?
He moved today. Oh my God, what's next? So he's between things. Zachy is one of my collaborators, and he who knows what we'll do next. I don't know what we'll do next, but we'll do something. Zachy, how is it where you are? New. Is it okay?
Oh, that's great. Oh my God. Yeah, well, we thought we were going to move to California. We ended up moving just to Park Slope, down the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But we're in a friend spot. A friend of ours moved out of her place and out of the state for the year, so she hooked us up, and beautiful place. We're really lucky. I don't know if there's going to be enough room for my ouds. I've got less space for my ouds, but we'll figure that out.
You might have to put them on the walls, huh?
Yeah, I didn't do that in the last place, but there's a lot of wall space. I think I'm going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, there is a way to do it. Yeah. So maybe let's. So you made some nice videos of some of the work you've been doing lately, and I thought that was beautiful the way you did a kind of a ritual closing with your community and made some of the
Yeah, I
music
feel like
come alive.
anything real, you got to make an offering for. Any moment that's big, I feel like you got to make something, or yeah, I feel the need to make something, and it was good. It was transitions are complicated, but then when we finally got to the moment of, oh, I can give you something as the sign of transition was really significant for me. And making them was a little strange. The musicians hadn't played together in months. And my group is very responsible, respectful. So we found a location that was, private property outside where we could be really far from each other, and masks on, even though we were outside and far enough away from each other. So. And then I don't know if it's New York or COVID. There's a lot of planning that's got to go into setting up the session, and then you get into the session, and sometimes there's a lot of space. But I don't know. I think in New York, it's rare that you have a group of 4 or 5 musicians and people can just sit around for 3-4 hours and talk it through. More often you've got somebody's got a kid and somebody's got to get to their next gig, and so people are like, we got 2 hours to do whatever we're going to do, no matter how much we've got to do. So I'll show up, we'll work hard for 2 hours, and then see you later. So it was kind of like that, and I had written all this new music. We haven't played in 6 months, but I don't stop writing music. So, and they like to do the old stuff that they know. And I say, what do you mean we're not doing the old stuff? I got new stuff for us to do. So we rehearsed and recorded 7 songs in 2 hours.
Zachy, I don't think I told you, but I did a gig the other night. What was it? What's
I didn't
today?
get to hear about
Thursday?
it.
Tuesday night, I think. Was it Tuesday?
How was it?
Well,
It's the
it
first
was.
one, yeah.
It was very strange.
Tuesday
It'd
night.
been so long, and it was in front of somebody's house,
In your city,
So we were all outside
in Cornell,
and
not
far away
from
from
you.
each other. And so I'm sitting up on a porch, and everybody else is like down on the grass in different places.
In the street.
And most of the time, we couldn't even see each other. And I had no rehearsal. I had no rehearsals. So I had to kind of listen and look, and I'm watching somebody's hands. My eyes aren't good enough to what either. And it was just really, but everything went great. It was great. We were so hungry to play, And
Yeah.
so we did the gig, and I have to admit, it was a little unsettling for me because I haven't been anywhere in so long. Even to be there was like I felt like exposed, and like it was dangers, and people
Mm.
kept coming and sticking their face in my face, and I would I'd forget for a minute, and somebody's sticking their face in my face, and my daughter was there, and she says,
Totally
"Daddy,
freaked out.
Daddy, move away," I wasn't paying attention, and I needed like a I needed a trainer with me. Just so then I went and occupied my location up on this porch, and I settled into my location, and then we even went until it was dark, and then not I couldn't see anybody else. So we're all playing in the dark. There was not enough light to see each other, and that was really interesting and
Mm,
wonderful. It was all
mm.
by ear, and it was just great. And this will remind you, I had no rehearsals with them. It felt really good. It just felt great. I loved it.
It's going to be a whole recalibration process,
It was so different.
Everything
yeah.
of everything, right?
Like I found myself doing things differently than I'd ever done before. I mean, I generally don't say anything when I'm on stage with these guys. There's like this thing that people do with patter and stuff. I don't say anything. But here I was doing patter. I'm doing routines. I could have done that. I could have done. So I said to him, I said, "Am I supposed to be spitting here? Because this guy wrote an article in the paper and he said I was spitting. You know that phrase? Spitting
No.
means like you're giving over your thing in language. They call it spitting.
Yeah.
And so spitting now has a strange you use that now. It's like, and it's an odd significance. So here I was saying, am I supposed to? I can't see anybody. So I say, am I supposed to be spitting? Meaning, am I supposed to do my piece now? And then somebody else says, no, man, you can't do any spitting. So it became like a comedy routine. I felt like I was doing a routine. I don't do routines.
I think we're
So it was
also
really.
there's a gratitude that's you come upon. New York is lucky. There's a lot of music and artists around that haven't played in a long time. So once even a month or two ago, people started playing in the park and such. But people are grateful to you hear an instrument live. That hasn't happened in some time, and
Yeah,
we got
here
okay
too.
with doing without that. But it's so precious to hear a violin. A friend was playing at a bar, and I drove my bike up and listened across the street. It's just so great.
Well, you want to play? I think we can. I don't know what the language is here. You want to roll one of those pieces? I don't know what it's called.
Tell me
Let's
what
show
you
one of
want.
those pieces. Let's see
Yeah,
if
let's
Zach can.
do.
Jake, can you pick up Zachy's piece?
Jake, let's do. I think it was called Psalm 95. It's one of the opening melodies for Shabbat.
אשר בידו מחקרי הארץ בתואבות ההרים לו
Yeah, that was nice. Man. The sound was
Very
great, man.
nice. Very nice. Wasn't that great? Yeah.
Yes, we were just,
Musician.
we were remarking, like, how did you rehearse that and play that in 2 hours?
That was one of the easy ones.
That's great.
I love when the violin comes in.
That crew, the way I kind of, with New York, you don't really join a band anymore. You join like 10 bands because that's the only way you could possibly make a living. You can't make a living from one band. You gotta be a member of 20 bands, and so I like that. I said, the band will be kind of fluid and different people come in and out, and it's fun that way. But that group, the bass, the violin, and the guy who was playing the brooms, we've been playing since about 2012, all of us. So that group is kind of the core group, and the more we know each other, the easier it is to jump in.
I'll show you. Maybe I'll pull up a video that we did. We were suffering here, and all of us were hungry to do something. So I just recorded one of the pieces that was on our newest compilation, and I recorded it myself, and I sent it to the guys who were on the recording, and they built it while we were still isolated, and it came out pretty nice, even though it's not as nice as the recorded version, the fancy version that we did, but it came out nice because we got to like work with each other, even though we were all separate, and we all contributed our pieces separately. And you want to see how that looks? It's interesting. And it's relevant because it's called I Am Not Afraid, which means I was lying. But it turned out okay. Jake, can you do that one?
Destabilized, paralyzed, I am not afraid. Cannibalized, infantilized, I am not afraid. Like a tree planted by the water, oh, I am not afraid. Modularized, polarized, I am not afraid. I am not afraid. Oh, I am not afraid. No. I am not afraid. Hear me now. I am not afraid. Elasticized, territorialized, I am not afraid. Like a pigeon on a New York public library, I am not afraid. Factionalized, depersonalized, I am not afraid. Pressurized, particularized, oh, I am not afraid. I am not afraid. I'm not afraid. No, I'm not. I am not afraid. I'm telling you now, you believe me, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Tell me when I need to hear it that I am not afraid. revitalized, humanized. I am not afraid. Harmonized, democratized. Oh, I am not afraid. Organized, synchronized. I am not afraid. Civilized and spiritualized. I am not afraid. I am not afraid. No, 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 no. I am not. Oh, I'm not afraid. I am not afraid. No, no, no. I'm not afraid.
That was fun.
You know,
Where those
that we took
cactuses
it,
from?
huh?
Who did
Hey,
the
Lazarus.
cactus footage?
Oh no, I told him, I said, put Joshua trees in it.
Nice.
Yeah. And we took footage from the last gig we did before we did the gig at this place. Is so much fun. And we had footage of the gig. And I said, it might be a while before we do this again. Let's use the footage from the gig, the live show. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to tell a story. The story almost got away from me. I was talking to somebody on screen last week, and somebody said something, and all of a sudden I had a memory of a person that I hadn't thought of in 20, 25 years. And the whole story, I realized, had eluded me. I hadn't written it. I write stories partially so I don't forget them, It's one of the reasons I write stories. If I don't write them, I can forget them. And I realized I had forgotten this story, and it was such a delicious story. And so I've been writing stories during this month of Elul. For us, this is the month of Elul, the month before the days of awe, the high holidays, before the month of Tishrei. And in the month of Elul, we start to kind of recall the vocabulary of transformation that comes from within, the sense of emergence from within. So we start to draw out that vocabulary the month before this month, the month of Elul. So I started to write pieces that demonstrated the vocabulary of transformation in a kind of a different way. I wanted to make them short pieces, and I wanted them to depict this transformative thing in another kind of way. So I found myself on the screen last week, and all of a sudden, somebody was talking about, didn't you used to teach at the hospital, some hospital I was teaching at? I said, yeah. And then I remembered this story. So I'm gonna tell the story. So I was, in those days, it was the early 80s. We had just come here. And if you remember, if you were here then, there were gangs that were blowing each other up in those days, like bombs underneath their cars of rival gangs. I mean, organized crime kind of gangs. I don't want to mention any names in case they're still around, but it was big news when we first came here. These guys were blowing each other up, and I had lived in Detroit where that kind of thing was going on all the time, and pretty much the people who participated in that kind of they exhausted that strategy or they killed each other off, but they stopped doing that at a certain time. When we came here, they were still doing that. They were blowing each other up. Somebody over here in Clayton got blown up in a garage here in Clayton in those years. So I was at that time I was working at these treatment centers in my spare time, and I would go there and talk about the nature of these treatment centers were for drug and alcohol abuse. And they asked me to come and talk about the place of spirituality and that kind of healing, you know. So I would basically go to these hospitals and tell stories is what I would do. And I would go in there and tell these really interesting stories about the nature of this kind of transformation, internal kind of thing. So there was a story from I had picked up from a famous book. You probably know this book, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, collected by a guy named Paul Reps, and it's a collection of Zen stories and Zen parables. So this was in that book. It's a famous story about a guy is running off a cliff and a tiger is chasing him, and the tiger he runs off the side of the cliff, and there's a tiger above, and then there's another tiger waiting for him below. So he's hanging on at the edge of the cliff is basically the story, and then he looks next to him, and there's a vine growing out of the side of the cliff, and on the vine is a strawberry. So the Buddha who's telling the story says, "So what does he do?" asked the student, and the student gives all the possible answers. The Buddha says, "No, no, no, no. He picks the strawberry and he eats it." That's basically the story. So this story moved for me in some strange way. So I used to tell the story in these talks. And one day I must have told the story 50 times. And it's not my way to explain a story. I would just tell a story, you know, let the story sit with people. And for some reason, this story really resonated for me. So I'm telling a story once at this one hospital here in St. Louis, and I pause when I'm done with the story, and I hear this growl coming from the other side of the room. And the growl says, "What the hell does that mean?" And I didn't think about it, and I realized that the obvious response is, you know, that the story about living so radically in the present that the guy eats the strawberry, you know. But I realized when he said that, I realized that wasn't why the story resonated for me. That wasn't it for me. So I looked at him and I thought about it. And in my head, I said, well, that's not why the story is meaningful for me. So I was kind of silent about it. I went home and I said, you know, I don't know why I keep telling this story. So I started, my way is to write about it. So I went home and I started to write about it. And I wrote this whole thing about why that story was so meaningful to me. And the way it became meaningful, why it was meaningful to me was because the story was about um, um, changing the way a person thinks, how you think about something. So instead of thinking about solutions, for example, you detach from solutions and you're given over to responses rather than answers, because most of the responses are to the story is the answer. How do you solve the problem of this guy's existence, which the story doesn't solve? He eats the strawberry, but there's still a tiger above and a tiger below, and he's still poised between the two. So it's not an answer, it's a response, and that's different from an answer. It could have been a number of responses. And the problem of the story and the problem of his existence still exists. And I also realized that the story was designed to detach the listener from thinking about ultimates and moving towards being on the way to something, toward something, and to release one from arrivals and to engage one into journey, that kind of thing. And I realized that's why the story resonated for me, because it was a reorientation about how you think about such things. So a couple of months passed after I'd written all this stuff after this guy. So it was about this time of year. We were living in Creve Coeur. I remember the phone rings one morning. I answer the phone, It's this guy. He says, I tracked you down. I hope you don't mind that I called, but I'm the guy that was in the care unit that day that you told that story. He says, I've been thinking about that story. And he said, you got a moment to talk to me? I said, yeah. I said, I've been thinking about that story too. And as a matter of fact, I wrote all about it and I shared with him about what I had come to with it. And he says, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah. He says to me, do you mind if I come and visit you? So I said, yeah, sure. So he started coming to the house where we were living. Jake was little. And he would come to the house and like cut our lawn. Or another time he'd show up and he'd pull the sticks up off the grass, stuff like that. And he'd play with Jake. He'd throw Jake up in the air. And he was a pretty fearsome looking guy. He was a very heavy looking dude. And when I asked him, I said, his name was Walter. I said, Walter, like, what is it that you did, before you got into the care unit there? Like, what was it you were doing? And he says, I was a driver for one of these mobs. And what he meant by I was a driver, meaning I was muscle for one of these mobs. So I started to go visit him. He lived down by that Lemp brewery that just fell down, down there. He lived down there. So I would go visit. He lived in a terrible, really terrible place. But you could tell he had some bread because he drove a Cadillac and lived in this terrible place. So he had some money stashed away. So I would go visit him, and then he had some heart problems, and had some surgery, and his wound didn't heal very well. They kept having to go back and go back. He was having a lot of problems. So I'd go visit him and go visit him. He had a terrible time healing. And there came a time when I didn't hear from him anymore. So I went down to look for him. He wasn't living there anymore. I didn't know his last name, so I couldn't track him. A couple years passed. I get a letter I figured he was dead. I was sure he was dead. I get a letter in the mail. It has a lot of stamps on it, and it's from an island in the Caribbean that I didn't recognize. So I open the letter, and it's from Walter. And he says to me, he says, listen, you'll hear from me once in a while, but not too much. This is his language. I took the money I squirreled away, and I went off to this island. And he said, I met a woman. She's the queen of her tribe. It was a tribal person. She's the queen of her tribe, and we got married. So he was like a king of the tribe. So I heard from him off and on. And well, when I recovered the story just recently, I realized that if this is not a story of this kind of transformation that we talk about this time of year, then I don't know what it is. Like, not only does this guy almost ruin himself, but he thrived. Not only did he thrive, he married a queen and he became a king.
Nice.
Is that a good story? Now, the
Great.
thing of it is, I almost lost it. I almost lost the story. And it just a little piece of it came floating by this
Mm,
week. And I plucked it and I wrote it and I recovered it.
mm.
So there's a story for Elul for you, a good story. And thanks for coming on to the big show.
So this is the month of Elul. We begin the 8th day tonight. We count every day. Every day we blow the shofar, and we do these prayers of penitence. Slichot we call them. And we look at our lives and we ask for forgiveness, so that we make room, I guess, for the transformation that we hope will happen when the new year comes at the next new month. Deb and Bill, thanks so much for being on the big show. Jackie, you got a last teaching for us there?
I got
last
nothing
word?
to say. I'm going to bed.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Jake, for
Jake,
taking
thanks so
care
much,
of the
Jake.
tech.
Absolutely.
Jimmy had a big birthday this week. Yesterday
What?
was yesterday was Jim's big birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Yeah, it was his birthday this week.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Sarika turned 36 and Jim turned twice that, 72. This week.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had a,
Those are
And
good
you're
ones.
not afraid.
are you afraid?
I'm kind of afraid.
We're all kind of afraid.
I'm somewhat afraid. But that doesn't work well with poetry. I am somewhat afraid.
You know, you're 72 and you're still finding your stories.
Yeah.
Snatched it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Snatched it back from the precipice of no return.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for coming on to the big show,
Miss
and
you guys. Good to see
it's
you.
nice checking in in any way possible.
Zakia,
Be well. Thank you.
everything goes well in your new home there
Yeah.
with your
Thanks very
family.
much.
Everybody
Yeah,
be well, be safe.
Keep the faith.
Yep.
Yeah. All the way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Night, night.
Right.
Good night.
Thanks again for being on the big show.
מודה אני לפניך, רוח העיר קיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי רחם לך, רבה אמונתך. מודה אני לפניך, החיים קיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי רחם לך, באמונתך. אני לפניך, רוח החיים קיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי וחמלה, רבה אמונתך.